you could take a personal inventory and ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much certainty do I have in my relationship? How much variety? How much significance? How much connection and love? How much growth and contribution? And don't make the numbers good or bad or right or wrong. Use them as a benchmark, because maybe if you're at a 4 or a 5, the goal is to get to a 6 or a 7. Or if you're at a 6 or a 7, maybe you want to shoot for a 7.5 or tickle an 8 or tickle a 9. But I'm telling you, it is all about really what Ravi said there, understanding what your model of the world is. We call that your MOW, your model of the world in terms of which needs are important to you. But you also have to take a moment and look through the lens of your spouse or your partner.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Peak Health with Dr. Gupta, where we work to optimize your health and maximize your genetic potential. If you like our show and want to learn more, please visit our website at peakwellnesshealth.com, which is linked in the show notes below, where you can gain access to a 10-day body reset module that teaches you about diet, sleep, meditation, exercise, and guides you on how to lower blood sugar, lower blood pressure, lower body fat, and improve your biomarkers all in just 10 days. Additionally, you can find a body optimization module, which teaches you how to lose fat and build muscle. You can also find a link to schedule one-on-one consultations with me. How many of you have wondered why you're suffering in relationships? Or maybe you just want to know how to improve your relationship. Perhaps you think your spouse just sucks and you're perfect and they need to change. Well, if any of this is true, this is the podcast for you. Healthy relationships are a fundamental necessity for vitality. In fact, if you look at functional medicine root causes of disease, relationships are right there along with sleep, exercise, and nutrition. A recent Harvard longitudinal study on relationships found that relationships and community are a stronger predictor of good health compared to any other biomarker. If you had to choose a statin or a good relationship, choose a relationship. One of my cardiology friends was quizzing me about this statement, but I stand true to it. I really think you choose a relationship over a statin unless you're a cardiologist. Let's just say that. To answer these questions about relationships, I'm honored to once again welcome to my podcast, Trevor McGregor. Trevor is a tremendously successful international professional coach who is honored to work for Tony Robbins as one of his master platinum coaches for over half a decade. I can't speak highly enough about him. Welcome, Trevor.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. Great to be here with you, Dr. Gupta, and thanks for having me back.
Yes, great. We're happy to have you back. I mean, our last podcast was a huge hit, and I know people really want to hear from you on many more topics, including this one. So there's so much when it comes to discuss relationships. There's so many types of relationships, your friends, your parents, your kids, etc. What I really want to focus on today is intimate partners. And out of this discussion of intimate partners, you can garner distinctions of pearls that you can use in other relationships, because really, when it comes to health and longevity, what truly matters is the quality of your closest relationships. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start with something simple. What is a healthy relationship? What does it feel like?
Well, that's a great question to kick it off. And I always said, that, a relationship or a healthy relationship, if you really break that word into two, relationship, it's like two people on a boat sailing, hopefully in a mutually beneficial direction together, right? Relationship. And sometimes, you're on that ship and things are good. And then other times, there might be a few waves and the boat might be going up and down and it might be a little bit rocky. But again, there's a great quote from Jim Rohn where he says that it's not the winds that blow on you that determine where you end up. It's the set of the sail. And that's really what I love about this quote. It's not the winds that blow on you in a relationship that will determine where you end up. It's the set of the sail. That is, what are you doing pre-sail? What are you doing during the sail? And how are you navigating things during the good times and maybe the not so good times? And Ravi, that's what we're really here to talk about. What do you think?
Absolutely. So I love that analogy. And what you're saying is you really have to prep. You have to understand the fundamentals of what creates a good relationship to have one. So, when you do that and you're, say, in this analogy, you use your setting sail and you're in this relationship with your partner, how do you feel? How does one feel if they're in a good relationship?
Yeah, it really is the second part of your question there, where we really talk about, well, what is a great or a healthy relationship? And I think a healthy relationship is where, Two people come together, and it could be a man and a woman, could be, same sex, could be either, where you're generally, they're on purpose and with purpose to lift and elevate each other physically, mentally, emotionally, through many different modalities, whether that is what you do together, that is, what you have as values together or rules or perspectives, meeting your desires for intimacy obviously is a huge component to a healthy relationship. And, what I really do believe comes from my coach and my mentor, Tony Robbins, when he says that we're really there to help each other meet their 6 human needs. Now, for the listeners that might not be familiar with the 6 human needs, it's really, universal. And we're really craving only 6 things to really step into our highest and best versions of ourselves and in that relationship. So if you're okay, shall we run through those right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
You bet. The first one, folks, is that need for certainty. So think about you and your relationship right now on a scale of 1 to 10. How much certainty do you have that, you know who you are, who you're with, where you're at in your relationship, that you can count on each other, right? Because if we don't have certainty in a relationship, you know what, we're not going very far. That takes us to number 2, which is uncertainty, also known as variety. That is, how much variety do you have in your relationship? How many different places are you traveling? Are you going on date nights to different restaurants? Are you trying new intimate positions? I mean, there's so many things that we could do to go out there and get certainty, but also we need the polar opposite of that, which is uncertainty or variety. Ravi, do those two make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And it's clear that those are opposites, right? You have to have
That's right.
certainty, you have to have variety.
Yeah. And if we don't have variety, we get bored. And
Right.
if you look at statistics, there's a lot of, material out there that shows that really it's the lack of variety that makes people go out there and, let their eyes wander. So you got to keep that relationship fresh. You got to really commit to keeping that variety going. And that takes us to number 3, which is significance. Significance. We all need to feel unique or important or special or loved. And we'll get to more of that in just a little bit. But those are the first 3. So the certainty, the variety, the significance. So the final 3 are as follows, because number 4 is the big one. And you know what it is, and I know what it is. It's that need for connection and love. And note that those 2 go together, because you got to feel connected in order to really, really step into higher levels of love. And so those 4 needs are called the primary needs. And we're either going to find them and meet them in an empowering way, Ravi, or we're going to meet them in a disempowering way. But we're here to help people meet it in an empowering way. That leaves the final 2, which are called the needs of the spirit, where in a relationship, you must grow. Number 5 is the need for growth. And we're just like plants. I mean, if a plant isn't growing, ultimately what's happening to it? It's dying. And we don't want our relationship to die. We don't even want it to survive. We want it to freaking thrive. And then that comes to the 6th and final need, which is contribution. Contribution. How are we getting up every day and contributing to ourselves first? And that means that we're better to go out there and, commit and help our, significant other or spouse or partner, live a better life and have a better experience as well. So I'll recap all 6 and I'll throw it back to you, because we all have the need for certainty. We all have the need for uncertainty or variety, the need for significance, the need for connection and love. Again, those are the primary needs. And the 2 needs of the spirit, growth and contribution. And can you imagine what relationships would be like if people knew that that's actually what we're after and what we crave? How would you speak to that, Ravi?
Yes, 100%. These 6 needs are so fundamentally important to understand. And what's also important to understand is where your partner, where their needs are and how those needs need to be met. Now, for example, you could have a need for love and connection. That may be your primary need. But your partner, primary need may be a need for certainty. So if you are trying to get love from your partner and doing all the things that you think are important, that you would want for yourself, but your partner craves that certainty need, then you're going to have a problem. Or even more so, if like your need is variety, their need is certainty, then there's a clash there. So if you understand that on a deeper level, if you understand that, hey, look, our needs are different, they line up differently, then with that awareness comes power. And that's where you can make decisions and improve how you interact with each other.
Very well said. And you can take personal inventory as a coach and a high performance coach. And I've worked with well over 30,000 people at this stage of my career. And that's an actual statistic. So really the human experience has been my laboratory, kind of like Tony Robbins, where you could take a personal inventory and ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much certainty do I have in my relationship? How much variety? How much significance? How much connection and love? How much growth and contribution? And don't make the numbers good or bad or right or wrong. Use them as a benchmark, because maybe if you're at a 4 or a 5, the goal is to get to a 6 or a 7. Or if you're at a 6 or a 7, maybe you want to shoot for a 7.5 or tickle an 8 or tickle a 9. But I'm telling you, it is all about really what Ravi said there, understanding what your model of the world is. We call that your MOW, your model of the world in terms of which needs are important to you. But you also have to take a moment and look through the lens of your spouse or your partner.
And not only that, I mean, these needs come into play with relationships, but also with work, with, with your kids, with passions, with hobbies. It's, all of the above. So for example, if you truly enjoy a particular hobby and you think about why you enjoy it, you probably enjoy it, one, because it gives you certainty and maybe you're really good at it. It gives you variety because perhaps, there's day-to-day things change around and you're learning new things as you go. Maybe it gives you that relationship need because you're doing it with friends. It gives you the need for relationships and love and passion and, and growth and contribution. And it fits all the 6. And if you look at it from that perspective, you realize why you like that particular hobby so much. Because when you meet, I think it's 4 or 5 of those needs, Trevor, then that becomes a habit. That's something that you have to do, you need to do to create this fulfillment in you.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely spectacular that you share all of those modalities, because that's absolutely what we're after. Because if we can meet all 6 needs at a high level, it becomes addictive, number 1, but number 2, it leads to massive levels of fulfillment. In fact, if you look statistically at couples that are not having a good experience, or maybe they're fighting, or maybe they're on the brink of divorce, or, something is not happening that's, something that we want, it's really not because of what's going on, other than they're not meeting their 6 human needs at a high level. And that leads to levels of depression or, resentment, or all of those, emotions that, we're human beings and we're meant to feel. And we'll get into those in a little bit as well. But I can tell you, if you want to, just absolutely have a quantum leap in your feelings of how you're showing up and how your significant other is, seeing you show up, really check in with those 6 human needs.
Excellent. So, the initial question is, how does it feel like to be in a good relationship? And, the reason I ask this question, it seems very basic and simple, but the reason I ask is because many people don't know truly how it feels like. They are in a relationship where they may not have that level of intimacy. They might not have that support, but they don't feel cherished or appreciated, but they're like, oh, this is what, the way it is. And they commiserate with their friends, and their friends say the same thing. And they're like, yeah, this is a relationship. This is the way marriage works. But the truth is, it really isn't. A healthy relationship is one where you feel loved, you feel supported, you feel cherished, you feel appreciated, wanted. And, in our discussions, Trevor, we've had many discussions on this topic. I didn't really realize that simple concept. I was like, oh, well, relationship is one where you're taking care of your kids, or, you're working together and building a home, or, whatever it may be. But I didn't realize the level that, a level of support and respect and trust and love that you should feel, and you should aim for. And that should be your goal. And that's what this podcast is about. It's trying to help all of you really understand that, hey, look, this is what it should feel like. This is, this is where it should be. This is my goal. And we're really going to try to help you to achieve that in your relationship.
Yeah, it's absolutely spectacular. So to go to a layer deeper on that is, it's really, what do you want to feel? Do you want to feel that level of love? And it can't just be one way. It's got to be, you've got to give and be open to receive love. What about the ability to grow? Are you helping your significant other step into their highest and best self? And are they helping you to step into your highest and best self? How are you showing up as a parent with each other and with the kids? Or how are you showing up in terms of, all of the different nurturing and naturing things that go along with it? Because I often will say that it's almost like a cake where you have to be your own cake and your spouse has to be their own cake because we're the sugar, the eggs, the flour, and the butter. And then you get to be the icing on each other's cake or the cherry or the chocolate sprinkles. But
I like
if
that.
you don't understand that, you're the one that has to show up and they're the one that has to show up, and then we come together and have this delicious cake fest, you're really missing out on taking that new relationship to the next level, because it's easy to sit there and blame and shame and justify because, as Tony says, what's wrong is always available, but so is what's right. So you really have to ask yourself, what is going well in that desire for love, nurturing, nurturing, cherish, intimacy, passion, growth, all of that stuff. But when there's something that doesn't go, that is not to your liking, that doesn't go the way you want, that's the universe's invitation to get us to grow and build the muscle and problem solve and figure it out. But unfortunately, sometimes when couples or individuals get triggered, you know what happens. Instead of choosing to respond to the trigger, they react to the trigger. And like we said, that's where suffering happens. And I don't know of any relationship that doesn't have speed bumps or doesn't have hiccups. But the question is that going to become, where you go, is this all there is, or is this the best it can get? Or are you ready to get up, dust yourself off, and figure it out with your spouse? And we'll talk about more of that. What do you think, Ravi?
Yes, yes. And, it's easy to say these things on a certain level, but to put it into practice is or potentially more difficult because you have to change your behavior. You have to change your thought process. So, Trevor, I came up with a 5-step solution to this, which I shared with you prior to the podcast. And you said this would be like a $1 billion book, I believe?
I did. Yeah, it's absolutely golden.
Okay. So let's start with step number 1. And what I want to do here before I start is I really want to give you listeners actionable steps and things that you can think about and that you can do to improve your relationship. So the first one is love yourself first. And I'll let you talk a bit about that, Trevor, because that is so important.
Yeah, I mean, it is the foundation of what a relationship is, because there's only 2 types of relationships we need. The first one is with yourself. The second one is with others. But if you're not taking care of the foundation, it would be like trying to build a house on, an unstable surface. You've got to really ask, how are you filling up your cup? What are you doing to honor and celebrate and love you, right? And what are you doing to make yourself feel the way you want to feel? Because there's an emotional residue that comes with, how well we take care of ourselves. And this podcast is a perfect example of, what are you doing to really honor your body, whether that is nutrition or diet or supplements or sleep. I mean, if you want to have the best version of you going into a relationship, we absolutely know that it comes with, self-care, self-love, forgiveness, right? All of the things that you could do. And I know people all the time, Ravi, that say, but I don't know how to love myself, or I don't have time to love myself. And ultimately, you know what? It's where focus goes, energy flows. You got to pick meditation, or you got to get a massage, or you got to go inward and really journal. But I'm telling you, people sell themselves short in terms of not realizing how magnificent they are or how brilliant they are. And it goes back to that quote, what's wrong is always available, but so is what's right. And you've got to start with what's right. How would you speak to that?
Yes. I've always thought that you cannot give what you don't have, right? Like if you squeeze an orange, you're not going to get apple juice out of it.
Yep.
If you don't have love inside, you're not going to give that to others. It's just the way it works. You really, a lot of people look at relationships as vehicles to bring happiness, but it's not true. That happiness must come from within. And the way you get that happiness is really focus on yourself first. As Trevor mentioned, start the morning with gratitude, with exercise, with inner peace, meditation, things like that really support you, where you're grateful for being who you are, and exercising. So you're taking care of your body, you're eating well, you're taking care of yourself. That just shows that you love yourself. And it's really interesting in that if you recorded, what the inner dialogue that you're having with yourself, I would say probably, 70 to 80% of people would be institutionalized. And if this dialogue were actually spoken out loud, because it is so negative. It's like, people are like, oh, I'm fat, I'm lazy, I'm not good enough. Nobody loves me. People are constantly thinking these things. And you have to get rid of that inner dialogue. You have to realize that, you are worthy. And I think a very simple way to do it, I heard this recently, and I don't know if you've heard this, Trevor, from someone named Meg Robbins, big personality out there. She calls it like sort of like a morning high five. And what you do is you look in the mirror and give yourself a high five. And it sounds kind of stupid in some ways, but it's so effective because, a high five, you're giving a high five to someone that you're happy with, that you care about, that done a good job in a sport you're playing or whatever it may be, or someone you want to support. And when you do that to yourself, those neural connections, kind of align so that you're focusing on yourself. You're giving yourself that little burst of appreciation. And that's, for those of you that are just starting this journey, that's something very simple, something you could do just in the morning and start that process of loving yourself first.
Yeah, I love that. And Mel Robbins is a force. She's fabulous. People want to tune into her. She's got some great stuff, but it's really about filling up your cup, right? And people always come to me and say, Trevor, my cup is either half full or half empty. Well, the goal here is to fill up your cup and make it so full that, I'll give you a great analogy that I use every morning where we're pouring like from a beautiful crystal pitcher into a beautiful crystal cup, right? And we're pouring in and we're pouring in and we're pouring in and we're loving and honoring and nurturing and naturing ourselves with exactly whatever tools you enjoy using to where you fill up that cup so much, Ravi, that it creates that meniscus at the top of the cup where the water is about to spill over. But instead of letting that water just spill over, what I want the listeners to picture is placing a beautiful crystal bowl underneath the cup. So we got a beautiful crystal pitcher pouring water into a cup that overflows, but instead of the water smashing down on the ground, it lands in this beautiful bowl. And that analogy is something where I say we always want to pour into our cup and let that water spill over so that we give to others from the bowl. It's called the giving bowl. And so the more we pour into ourselves, the more we're going to have to give others. What do you think of that analogy?
Yeah, I love that analogy. I was just thinking about this morning when I was meditating, I was thinking about, I sometimes do this, and I was thinking about times when I was younger. And, the times that I remember that I was critical to myself and thinking about things that I did wrong or incorrectly or embarrassing things I did. And I used to think about those things and cringe. And I remember we had a conversation about this once where, we were talking about how to improve my identity and mindset. And I was telling you about this. And then you said, Ravi, look, you cannot do that. Like, think about yourself, think about your kids, think about, you at that age, because your kids are at the age of when you were doing those things, and think about how much you love them and think about how they really can do no wrong in your eyes. And what I started doing, and I did it this morning, was I thought about how, in those situations, how I would now treat myself at that time and how I would love that person and say, hey, look, it's okay. And just, give that person the support that they would need at that time. And I did that, and it kind of built this, feeling of love and caring for myself. And after doing that many, many times, it really has a profound effect. And I would suggest everyone to, consider that type of thing to start your morning.
Yeah, I love that. And it really is all about, really thinking differently than, maybe you did yesterday. And I really do believe that the morning ritual that has helped more people that I've coached and I know that you've worked with is gratitude, right? Dr. Joe Dispenza says that gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. What does that mean? Well, it means that when we get into that attitude of gratitude and we're grateful for our heart that all beats almost 100,000 times a day, or our lungs that take in oxygen, or the bed that we wake up in, or the spouse that's lying next to us, or the children in the next room, it's like an emotional flood where your biochemistry changes and you can't not feel good. I mean, the human brain cannot be in a state of gratitude and a state of fear at the same time. Now, where this becomes very powerful is through, doing it every single day, because it compounds. So if you wake up and you've got a meditation practice or a gratitude practice, or you're thinking about, things as Ravi did about his children, I'm telling you, it is a game changer in filling up your cup, because you're going to start your day much differently than if you wake up thinking about your problems. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Completely believe that. It's gratitude, it's self-love, it's forgiveness. Those things are so important to think about in the morning. Hey, folks, make sure to join us for part 2 of this episode, where Trevor and I finish our discussion on the 5 steps to up-level your relationships and save you thousands in counseling and so much more. We'll see you there. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And if you did, please make sure to hit the subscribe and the like button and leave a comment about what you'd like to see on our future episodes. Just a reminder that this podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not substitute for professional care, nor does it constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you're looking for medical care, please seek a qualified doctor or medical professional. For more information, or if you'd like to check out our programs, please visit our website, peakwellnesshealth.com. That's peakwellnesshealth.com.